So now we're going to talk about the aggregate supply curve, and it's actually the short run aggregate supply curve, which implies that there's probably a long run aggregate supply curve, but we're going to ignore that for right now. We're just going to deal with the short run aggregate supply curve, and it slopes just like a regular supply curve. And why does it? We talked about this a little bit in class, and the idea of sticky wages. And what the heck does it mean if there's something sticky? If something's sticky, it doesn't really move too good, right? So sticky wages kind of means wages that are not going anywhere. Look at that. So the idea that nominal wages, again, nominal wages, which means we're not thinking about how wages compare to prices, just the actual dollar value of a wage, all right? So they are stuck. That's the term that we use here. Now, why does this happen? If you think about it, think about Mr. Sutton, right? Mr. Sutton, my wage does not change within the given year. So my wage in September is the same as my wages in June. Now, I am lucky because I have a yearly step increase. So my wage does go up each year, but within the year, it stays perfectly stagnant, regardless of what's happening to prices, okay? My wage is the same. Now, some people don't have such a nice arrangement. They just have their wages set, and it doesn't move unless their employer decides that he or she is going to increase or decrease that wage. And so they are certainly stuck. They are not changing. Ooh. Now, if you think about this, it's my agreement that I have where my salary increases a little bit every year. Well, how do you figure out how much that increase is going to be? Well, one of the things that you want to think about is how much the price level is going to increase. Because we talked about it the other day. If you want to keep somebody's real wage even, then my nominal wage needs to go up as much as the price level. And so wages are set with an expectation about what's going to happen to the price level so that they're fair. Because if prices are really high and wages aren't growing, man, people feel really, really poor. All right? So, a couple questions for you. Who likes the price level when it's higher than expected? Who would enjoy that, do you think? I'll give you two choices, since they're right here. Since firms and households work together to set wages, who would like a higher price level, the firms or the households? If you said firms, you'd be right. Think about why here. I don't have a ton of space to write, but maybe I'll come up here. Think about when the prices are a little bit higher, that means more revenue for firms, more dollars come in. And also, if prices are higher but wages are stuck, so more revenue but not paying higher wages, right? Because remember, the wages are stuck, they're not going anywhere. So I bring in more money and I don't have to pay my workers anymore. That's amazing. That's what I'm liking if I'm a firm. Now on the flip side, who would rather have the price level be lower? Hopefully you're saying households, right? Because, and it's kind of the exact opposite. The households are saying, whew, I'm getting all my stuff for cheap, so you can consume for cheap, and your wage stays high. So even though things are cheaper because you have a sticky wage, you get a higher wage than you had anticipated. And the firms, the employers, they hate this. They don't like this at all. And so this is actually going to account for how our curve slopes the way it does. Hang on, let me pause 1 second. So yeah, as I was saying, if you think about it, if the price level is higher and I'm making more revenue, but I don't have to pay my workers anymore, and you're a firm, this is awesome because you have more dollars. So what might you do with those dollars? You might buy another worker. You might buy another machine now because you're paying that worker the same wage as though you had a lower price level and you would have gotten less revenue. So by having another machine at this higher price level, now you can produce more. So if you think about it, that explains why at a higher price level, your real GDP might be higher because hey, in the short run, I can buy more workers, I can buy more machines, the wages aren't going anywhere, and I'm making a boatload of money. On the flip side, down here when the price level seems low, if you're a firm, you're paying high wages, which makes your households feel fantastic, but you ain't getting jack in the cash register. So this is how you get this relationship here. Now, I have a little poem to help you remember how this works here. Now, I had to cross it off, so let's see. You might be able to see it a little bit, but so remember, this is the sticky wage poem here. So when prices and profits are amazing, oh, actually amazing, outputs are going to be what? Outputs, hang on, let me pause. So prices and profits are amazing. That means you're up here on your SRS curve. So outputs just, well, what's the output look like? Output looks like it's raging, right? And so if your outputs are really high and your prices and profits are amazing, hiring's just going to do what? It's going to be blazing. Ooh, that was good, that was good. Now, think about your workers here. What are your workers going to say? How do they feel right now? Because the price level's high. Remember, they're not happy. So the workers, they craving. Workers craving. Asking, how about some of that? What do they want? What do they want? What do they really want right now? Their price levels really high. What do they need to keep up with that high price level? They're going to be asking about, how about some of that pay raising? And then you're going to get, heck, I'm a firm. You must be playing, right? So firms aren't going to be interested in doing this. They don't want to adjust that wage upward, even though they should, to keep up with the price level. All right. Now flip over on the other side here. Prices and profits so low. So that means I'm down here on my SRS curve. Where am I? Down here. Prices and profits so low. Output falls way below. It's really low down here, right? It's low price level, low output. Hiring, what's going to happen here? Are we going to have lots of workers hired? Well, GDP is low, so we would expect unemployment to be higher here. So hiring is going to slow. Firms are going to complain because they don't like this, right? This is where your households are happy. They like a low price level, but firms are going to bellow, asking, can't these wages just mellow? Because remember, the price level now is really low, so they're not making any money. The prices and profits are really low. But yet the wages, remember, are sticky. They agreed to higher wages, and then the prices fell. So they were left in a tough spot. You're talking to labor. You must be one crazy fellow. So remember, labor is another way to say worker, so a household. Hopefully kind of walking through this poem here helps you understand and see how your short-run aggregate supply curve slopes the way it does. And there's just a couple of questions here if you want to like kind of think about what's going on. On either side, did our nominal wage change? No. Remember, this is the sticky wage poem. Sticky wages are stuck in the short run. All right. So now, who enjoyed the higher price level? Prices and profits amazing. That was your firms. They were really happy because they were able to make lots and lots of dollars. Right? So this hopefully helps you think about why the short and aggregate supply curve shifts or slopes the way it does. If you have any questions with that, make sure you let me know. All right, so we got to talk about how this thing shifts. So we talked about how it slopes, but now we got to think about how they shift. You'll notice that some of these shifters for your short and aggregate supply curve sound very, very similar to the shifters for your regular supply curve. So if you remember the Gentai, hopefully it'll be a pretty easy shift for you here to your short and aggregate supply curve. So one of the first things that's really important to affecting how much stuff you can make, your ability to supply goods and services, think about some of the things that we've talked about. What limits your ability to produce stuff? You might think about the technology, right? You might think about the skills your workers have. You might think about the availability of certain resources. You might think about the cost of labor, or the cost of the resources that you need, which leads me to the first one. Change in commodity prices. Commodity, I'm not clicking on this. Commodities might be anything like oil, or maybe timber, or maybe like sugar, anything that you use to make a lot of stuff in your economy. Oil is the huge one. And think about it. If oil prices are really high and you're a business that has to make stuff, that's probably going to hurt your ability to make it, right? You're going to have to devote so many dollars to buying oil that you can't buy machinery, or you can't buy workers, okay? So changing in commodity prices. And wages is kind of like a commodity. You need to pay for labor. But we're going to say nominal wages, and we're going to say only with the short and aggregate supply curve. But I'm going to write some. So there you go. Changes in commodity prices. Higher prices, SRS to the left. Lower prices to the right. Easier to produce. Now the next one, we talked about having, I think, more resources, kind of similar to resources. Human physical capital. Human capital being the skills that you need. Physical capital being those machines. If you have more skills, more machines, you can produce more. Your SRS curve is going to increase, it's going to move to the right. But if something comes along, destroys all those machines, and destroys your workforce, you're not going to be able to produce near as much as you did before. All right? Very, very similar to stuff that we talked about with our production possibilities curve, in fact, if you want to go way back. Next on the list, we talked about natural resources for a second. So if you have a newfound treasure trove of, say, oil, or your country comes upon, well, I mean, oil actually works good for the U.S., right? Like, we have discovered a lot of oil that we can get out of the earth through fracking, and that's helped our economy in some ways, create lots and lots of jobs, and we've been able to use that oil to make other stuff. Consequently, imagine if you had a significant, you lost a significant resource, maybe water, for example. If you were farming especially, that would destroy your agricultural industry. And so those types of things might hurt your economy's ability to produce and make your SRS curve go to the left. So I just kind of wrote out a couple of the examples that I talked about there. But the last one, again, straight from your Gentile, right? The T, the technology. If you have better technology, you're going to be able to produce more things. Maybe the expansion of having computers, right? That's led to our ability to produce more stuff. Maybe more farming technology, tractors. Imagine how much the automobile has influenced our ability to produce. Those types of things encourage short and aggregate supply growth. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to try your page 10, okay? So we've talked about some of the shifters. I want you to try to practice with those and try to identify in the far right column the thing that is shifting. So for your aggregate demand curves, you can just put, if it's consumption, you just have to write C. If it's investment, just write I. For short and aggregate supply curve, you got to be a little bit more nuanced, I guess. So whether you say natural resources or capital or something like that, that's fine. Be careful, because they'll try to trick you by putting ones that might be aggregate demand shifters on your aggregate supply paper and vice versa. So let me know if you have any trouble. And thank you for bearing with me with this 2-hour delay, and our week off from school has made our schedule go poof. So let me know if you have any trouble.